So officially welcome, Iona and Sally. So Sally, you had a question. If you can ask that again, and yeah, I'll answer it.
Can you explain what no private thoughts mean?
Yeah.
I didn't know if it was linked with like oneness, meaning that we're all connected, or is there another Course in Miracles aspect I'm not aware of?
Hmm. So that's actually interestingly the no private thoughts is one of the two kind of mantras or rules that they have in the Living Miracles spiritual community. Which is David Hoffmeister's community. So they live, in close proximity with each other in these in a couple of locations in Mexico and Utah, and they've got a place in Spain as well. And so they're two rules for the community: is no private thoughts and no people pleasing, which will come. It's course, based on Course in Miracles. These communities are based on a Course in Miracles teaching. Um, so they thought it was significant enough to make it one of the kind of guiding principles of their community living. Um, and really what it means is don't engage in private thoughts, don't think in ways that are separative. So just me and my story and my expectations and my fears and my wants and my desires and my grievances. And it's another way of framing the ego, isn't it? Because the ego will indulge in private thoughts, and it's going to tell you it's okay to think that because no one knows you're thinking it. See, this is a private thought. So it's okay to be angry with someone and resentful and think nasty thoughts about them, or um, sickness is a private thought. Be, oh, poor me, I'm sick. And then I'm looking for sympathy. These are all examples of private thoughts that have separation as their foundation. I want to be separate. I want to be alone. I want to be private in my thoughts. They are my thoughts, my special thoughts, and no one else's. And this is what he means by private thoughts. It's a concept of thought as yours and yours alone, which of course denies the oneness, the unity of the mind, because they cannot be separate. Your thoughts are happening in mind, and there's really only one mind. So how can your thoughts be private then, if there's really only one mind? When I'm healed, I'm not healed alone. Hi Lucy, welcome. So these thoughts, any thought we think goes into the whole field of mind. They're talking about, I don't know if you listen to Bruce Lipton talk, I posted, but they talk about the field. So Einstein said, what controls atoms and cells in the body, therefore, is not the specific chemicals, and it's not genes, because this is the kind of medical theory. It's not just genes that controls them. It's the field that controls them. And what is that field? That field is a mental, emotional construct. It's that field is made up of thoughts. So it's called the quantum field by science. Rupert Sheldrake calls it the morphic field. There's a field of mind, and what is the field made up of? The field's made up of thoughts. So you think a thought, it goes into the field of thought and into the whole mind, the sonship, and that then affects everyone. So if you thinking private thoughts, you think your thoughts are private. First of all, you're wrong. They're not. And further, they create separation in your mind. You're now using the thoughts to perpetuate a seemingly separate self. I'm a private thought thinking separate, private person thinking separate thoughts. See, this is the illusion. So it's one of the fundamental rules, if you like, guidelines for this community, because if you don't think private thoughts, then you're not playing into the hands of the ego. If you think, well, I'm thinking for everyone here, and you think a thought that's an ugly thought about someone, immediately you go, oh, just stop that, because it's as though the person is there. If your thoughts are not private, the person knows the thought. If your thoughts are private, then you go, oh, well, I can think whatever I want, and the person's not going to know. But they do know on some level, even if they don't know the specifics. If you're thinking negative thoughts about someone, they do know on some level, especially if they're in close relationship with you. They pick it up. I mean, think of a special relationship you're in or you've been in, and you're thinking ugly thoughts about the person. What does that do to your relationship? Like inevitably they pick it up because it goes into the field, and they feel it on some level. And vice versa. If they have an issue with you, you feel it. They don't have to say anything. You just know. So we're connected in this mental soup called the field, which actually controls everything. It controls the body. The body is not separate from the field. There's nothing separate from the field. This is where science and spirituality dovetail. Nothing's separate from the field. The field controls everything, as Einstein says. So this mental emotional field is what controls your body. There's nothing independent of it. It controls body, it controls behavior, it controls outcomes on the level of form. You want to look at the integral model, it's the interior domain. There's a domain, we call it a domain, call it a field that exists, and that is primary, that directs everything. So let me just share the so how can there be private thoughts if there's one field and we're all tapped into it? We tap into it through mind and through thought and emotion. Those are the access, those go into the field whether you like it or not. Those go into the field. If you're thinking, you're generating thought and emotion, then you're influencing the field on some level because you're not separate from that field. So then science and spirituality kind of dovetail. The spirituality says, well, this is your your inner world, and your inner world affects your outer world. The science might say, well, there's a morphic field or a quantum field, and that is directing body and behavior on the level of form, so we can observe outcomes. What's directing the outcome is there's a field. And so, more advanced scientists like Bruce Lipton have started to go, well, this, quantum theory makes sense. There's a field that's behind everything, that's governing body and behavior. So there really are no private thoughts. I'm thinking any thought that goes into the field, and everyone gets the benefit or the suffering from that. So I'm either contributing with every thought to healing and blessing and awakening for humanity, or I'm contributing to further enslavement, pain, suffering, and misery with my thoughts. And if you think of it that way, then doesn't that give you a greater responsibility for your thoughts? Well, if there are no private thoughts, then what I'm thinking about anyone matters, and I need to be vigilant of my thoughts because it's not just me. I mean, think of the time you went on your first date with someone you were, really attracted to. Well, you put a lot of awareness into that. You probably remember the experience. You might remember what you wear. You probably took half an hour to an hour to get dressed. There was a conscious awareness. Like, were you conscious aware of the way you ate? If you ate a meal, you were consciously aware of all of it. You were kind of wanted to be on your best behavior and show them your best side. Look, this is who I am. I'm not some slob. I dress nicely, I speak nicely. So that, and you probably remember the experience because of it. Am I right? We all kind of do remember things like first day because you're on your best behavior and you were vigilant. You were aware, consciously aware all the time. And then, if you decided to get married to that person or whatever, often then it slips. That heightened awareness slips over time, and you're no longer that vigilant. So think of it in terms of thoughts now. Well, surely you would want to be really vigilant of your thoughts all the time. So be mindful of what you're thinking, what you're saying, what you're doing, because everyone can see. In that instance was one person, but everyone, if there are no private thoughts, everyone knows your thoughts. Oh wow, I better be really vigilant of my thoughts because there are no private thoughts, and that's going into the quantum field that's affecting everyone. So do I want to be creating pain and suffering and misery for other people with my thoughts, or do I want to be creating happiness, joy, peace, love, and blessing? So let me be vigilant of them. And so it's quite a good tool, a concept to remind us. Let me be vigilant of my thoughts. There are no private thoughts. My thoughts go into the quantum field, and they have an impact on everyone on the planet. Every human being, every form of life, you are impacting via the field on a subtle level. You might say, well, that's scientific materialist looks at that and goes, that's ridiculous. Because they don't believe in the interior domain. They've discounted that in their model of thinking. They said, everything can be explained by the action of matter. Little atoms, molecules interacting, and that's what drives behavior. And they try and explain the world according to that paradigm, and it doesn't work too well. The medical industry model is based on that scientific materialist paradigm. It's based on a thought system. And as Bruce Lipton, said, if you watch the video, it's just, I realized after 20 years of being in the system, he was a medical doctor and teaching at a university, he realized that this was a dogma, that there was a dogma behind the whole system. That this wasn't fact, this was dogma. It was like, we've decided that this is our model of reality, and now we've got a thought system and an exterior system, this whole medical system. It's based on a dogma. It's based on a set of beliefs that are not true. If you really inquire into those beliefs, you see that they're not true, and actually they're false, and you can undo them, because anything that makes the exterior domain primary and denies interior domain is by definition false, because we are primarily mind and spirit. We are not primarily matter and form, and this is the spiritual truth. The mind goes on forever. Just that that realization alone, that's actually what did it for him. Bruce Lipton said it like, I just had this realization that I cannot die because this goes on forever. My mind goes on forever. And he said, oh wow, like from being a scientific materialist to having my heart expanded and really feeling that, that makes all the difference. Suddenly I'm getting in touch with my true being that's immortal. And you can no longer believe in the scientific materialist paradigm. Then he comes back in because he's been trained in that, and he says, well, let's reinterpret all this, and let's change medicine and make it holistic, make it integral, so that it acknowledges that there's this connection between the intentional interior domain, the domain of thoughts and emotion, which are not private, and the behavioral. And if we all live in the field, then this cultural collective exterior domain is going to influence us. We're part of that. If you're not strong enough, what happens is that field of thoughts and emotion that we call culture, a collective field, strongly influences people. Look at what happened in COVID. It was a field of fear and guilt, and that strongly influences behavior. Then you have these crazy systems of, well, we got to wear a mask. I mean, there's never any evidence that masks were at all effective. So why is everyone wearing them? Because they've been told to wear them, and they fear that well, because I've got fear, I'll do this behavior because I think it's going to make me safe, and that's what the system's telling me to do. So I'll trust the system. But free-thinking people, we're just going, really? It's like, there's no evidence for this. This is just a belief. What's being told to us is based on a belief system, and I question the belief of the system. I don't think it's true. But you have to have some mind training, and you have to understand things like the integral model. And if you've been into a good spiritual practice like A Course in Miracles, then you've been trained to question. You question the ego's beliefs. You know what the ego is. You question it, and that causes you to question everything that's being shown to you, and say, well, maybe this is just an illusion. Maybe it's all an illusion is by definition based on a false belief system. That's why it's an illusion. Maybe it's just illusion, and I will see the truth beyond this. So that's what private thoughts means, and hopefully I've given you an indication of the way the concept can be helpful
Mm.
to you, that you can use it to increase your awareness and be more vigilant of your thoughts. If you remind yourself, there are no private thoughts here.
And what about the subconscious, unaware ones, thoughts? The ones that have been buried. Maybe someone has child abuse and it's in their energy. That's just an illusion, a private thought illusion that affects the field.
Yeah, it's all mind, and everything is in mind. So we have in our Western psychology made up the concept of subconscious because you're not consciously aware of it. Okay, you're not consciously aware of 95% of your thoughts, according to science. I don't know how they come up with these percentages, but there's a large proportion of thoughts and emotion that is beneath your conscious awareness. You might have a vague feeling of disease that comes into conscious awareness, but what's underlying that might be a deep-seated childhood trauma, fear, and you're not actually consciously aware of that, of where that's arising. So any spiritual teaching that's going to heal is designed to bring what's buried in the subconscious into conscious awareness, and bring it into awareness so that you can look at it, and if it's not helpful, you can release it, let it go, because you recognize that it's an illusion. It's not helpful, and it's an illusion. It's a construct of the ego mind. It's now got deeply entrenched in your mind, and that's affecting your behavior and your outcomes all the time. With a deep-seated program, it's like a computer program. You're running the program. Like now, there's a whole lot of programs running behind the surface of our conversation. In this computer, there's all these sub programs running. You're not even aware they're running. They're just doing their thing, and they're making the whole machine work. So in a similar way, we're running programs all the time, and we're not consciously aware of most of them. They're just kind of running the show, and then we have a behavior, which is the tip of the iceberg, or genetics, tip of the iceberg, but underneath that is this interior domain. So the domain of now epigenetics, saying, well, thoughts and emotion influence genetics. So there's this whole iceberg underneath it that we're not conscious of. So now the spiritual enlightenment is all about becoming conscious of what was unconscious. So bring it into conscious awareness. No private thoughts is a helpful reminder to do that. So I thought it was private. I've stuck it away in my own mind, often because I'm ashamed of it, and I don't want anyone to know. So I'll just keep it to myself. I'll put the lid on it. I'll suppress it. I'll repress it. I'll try and forget it. But it's there. It's still in the field. It's still there because you can't hide. That's why Yeshua says, don't hide, try and hide anything, because you can't hide anything. Everything's in mind. Bring it into conscious awareness. If you've got an ugly thought, bring it into conscious awareness. Look at it and be aware of it, and then immediately it starts to dissipate because it's not true. I hate myself, or I hate another person. Or you bring that into conscious awareness. You really look at that and you go, really? Is that really true? Do I really hate the person, or do I just have a temporary kind of negative emotion? And maybe that's based on false belief. So you start doing inquiry. So again, no private thoughts. Brings it into conscious awareness. Let me bring it up. Let me look at it. And if it's not helpful, it's not serving me as a whole, then let me let it go. So I don't want to hold on to, any thought that's attacking anyone else is by definition a private thought. You wouldn't want to share that thought with them. I'm just thinking I'm hating you. Yeah, this is not a nice thing to drop into a conversation, is it?
Yeah.
So no, I was just thinking about you. I was really hating you. We don't we don't do that socially, because it's like oh no, you don't want to say that. So we keep it to ourselves, thinking that that's okay. If the other person doesn't know and I hate them secretly, that somehow it's all right.
I'm just saying, I say that sort of thing to Kenneth, but then he laughs.
Does he?
Yes, he does.
Because he knows you don't really mean it.
Yeah, because
Exactly.
he's laughing at ego, and I
Yeah.
used to say, stop laughing at me. He said, I'm not laughing at you, I'm laughing at ego. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Okay.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, which is a good reminder then, because it's not you. What he's really saying
Yeah.
is this isn't you. Because if he mistakes that for you, then he's made the same mistake as you have.
Yeah.
The reminder is that's not really you. And, if you laugh at it, the ego will be offended because the ego's got no sense of humor at all.
No
But
sense of humor.
no
Oh my
sense of
God.
humor at all.
That's
No.
Right.
Ego's really po-faced.
Po-faced.
Yeah, po-faced
Yeah.
ego.
Well, the ego can kind of mockery. It can do mocking laughter of someone else. Oh, you poor thing, and kind of, well, sarcasm maybe is kind of the highest form of the ego's wit, but it can never really do laugh at itself, because if you laugh at yourself, then by definition you are undoing the self. You're undoing the seriousness of that self and saying, well, actually, it's not really that serious. It's
Yes.
actually a bit of a joke if you really look at it. But you will observe if you're around people who are quite invested in the ego that there's a distinct lack of humor.
Oh yes.
They take themselves very seriously, and if you kind of start making fun of it, doesn't go down too well, because they're used to being very serious about themselves, and so someone like poking fun at them, they take it personally. Oh, how dare you say that? That's me you're talking about, and. We know, no, it's not really you. It's your illusion of yourself. But if you think it's you, then you're going to get offended. So,
that's the art of the comedy. The comedy act. What do you call it? Stand-up comedian.
Yeah, exactly.
Who's just putting out these characteristics that are, in that situation, you might be presenting with that, but you're sitting in an audience with a bunch of other people who are laughing too, and that seems to be a safe situation.
Then you can laugh at it. Yeah, there's a permission when you go to a stand-up comic to laugh and say, okay, well, even the most po-faced might actually crack a smile and kind of laugh, but well, sometimes they do. I suppose they can single out a member of the audience, but it's sort of general. He's poking fun at the human race, and for, well, maybe certain specific parts of the human race as well, because sometimes they go into race and gender, but somehow that's okay. You can do that. If you do that in normal conversation, then you could be seen to be unpolitically correct and offensive, and so I think we live in a society that's way too serious. Certainly, I mean, the society I come from, South Africa, it's too serious, man. Everyone just takes themselves way too seriously. Everyone's like really, I enjoy the UK because there's a bit more like, okay, well, we're not going to take ourselves so seriously. Kind of self-deprecating British humor is nice, because it's an undoing. It's a way of undoing the ego, not taking yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
So another tool to use and say, well, really, or can I just kind of laugh about this? Ego's in a fit. I'm really angry, and sometimes like a partner can just help you and go, oh, right, so you're really angry, and laugh. Then how dare you laugh at my anger? And you go, no, because it's a joke. Like what you're doing is a joke. It's ridiculous. So you're just spinning a story to yourself, and it's not. None of it's really true. So laughing makes light of it, and helps you to let it go. Yeah, so private thoughts, no private thoughts. It's a good one to remember, because it makes you, I think, more vigilant of your thoughts. Then, oh no, that thought's not private. Oh, okay. So would I want that thought to be known by anyone else, everyone else? Would I want that? And if the case is no, then you probably go, that's a private thought, and I need to let it go, because it's not serving you or the whole. Whereas, loving, kind thoughts coming from pure formless awareness, you're quite happy to share those. There's nothing to hide, is there? Like, you can be completely transparent and open, because the loving thought is kind, gentle, and that's going to be beneficial to anyone who knows about that. So loving thoughts you're never ashamed of, whereas the ego, there's always a sense, oh, I want to hide this because actually I don't want other people to know. So another way of distinguishing between ego and spirit. Would I want to share this thought? No. Okay, that's private thought. It's ego. If I'm happy to share it, then it's coming from spirit. The spirit is open, transparent, light, and happy to share because there's nothing to hide. It's like, well, yeah, why would you don't need to hide love and peace and joy. These are qualities anyone would appreciate. Even the most negative person will on some level respond to kindness. We all do. So there's nothing to hide. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, thank you.
Anything else to share?
No.
Lucy, anything arising for you?
Any of my private thoughts or my non-private thoughts? Well, I suppose one of my I had some shame rising this morning. I noticed the incredibly long list of things I have to do that I've just put for some reason. I really noticed that that aspect of can't do it well efficiently. Put it aside and don't do it until what I think lesson for me is the uncut.
You just broke up there.
Just do the thing. Did I just break up?
Yeah, but I didn't really get much of that. I don't know if you heard that, say.
Oh, right. Well, I was just saying, the lesson for me at the moment is to be just uncut in my in how I'm approaching the tasks that I've created for myself in the world. Like I need to do this, so many different things that I need to attend to, and then the tendency is to collapse. I go, oh my God, there's just too much to do, and I'd much rather go for a walk on the bay or jump in the sea, or I'd much rather do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, why do I have to do this stuff? Why have I created a world where I need to do quite a lot of stuff in it that is challenging for me? And yet, it's like, okay, the world of form suggests that I move in this way. I sit in front of a computer and I do X, Y, and Z. That there are things that maybe does it break up when that thing starts up? The machine?
No, it just went through a phase for a minute. It was just it was dodgy for whatever reason. I don't know why.
So I'm just noticing that aspect of ego that says, you need to do this really well, and then it goes into a panic. The perfectionistic panic of ego.
Yeah, I'm not going to get it right. I'm going to fail. What will people think of me? Or outcome for failure is disastrous. And so it goes. I've also got a lot to do at the moment, so I know the feeling. But when it comes, it's just a feeling of overwhelm and actually being inadequate.
Yeah.
You just got to say, no, if I give this, it's not me doing it. If I really give this to spirit and I really trust, I will be done through, and this will happen in the right time. It's all perfect. It's going to happen when it needs to happen, and I'll be guided as to how that needs to happen. And yes, I need to step up and work. I need to be willing. I'm not going to be lazy and avoid it. And this is my service. I think the way you get through this is you say, this is my service to both my higher self, because I'm always serving myself. I'm learning the truth. I'm on my own hero's journey, number one. Through this work, and secondly, it goes into the collective. There's no private thoughts. Nothing is just for myself. I'm giving it to everyone. This is my service to the whole, the sonship, to facilitate awakening, to facilitate this great awakening. I'm playing my part in it. So every email I send, every task I have, it's really part of this bigger purpose. And that's when you find inspiration. You find, you can do what most people would consider, extraordinary. For you, it just becomes normal. But it's service. Every day I have to do an email and the messages. It's a production every day, and it takes a lot of time. And sometimes I get 3, 4, 5 hours sleep. But it's I just go, well, there are people who rely on this, who benefit from this every day. If I don't do it, then they don't get their material, and potentially they're less conscious than they could have been. They're less aware. So it's a service, and I think that's what gives you the inspiration that's sustainable to keep going. Go, okay, it's service comes from inspiration, whereas what's in it for me, the YFM frequency of the ego, comes from ego. It comes from the little self. And that's not typically that sustainable. What's in it for me? Well, what happens if the equation turns out to be not, so great for me? Certainly in the short term, I'm giving and I'm giving. What's in it for me? Nothing. Oh, no, we'll stop there. You're not getting your immediate desires and needs and expectations met. So stop. Where service says, no, I will do this because there's a deeper purpose here. And although I'm not getting any short-term reward necessarily, I feel in my heart that this is the right thing. It's a calling, and so that's inspiration versus motivation. And inspiration is way more powerful because it comes from the deepest thoughts and emotions that you hold, the deepest truth about yourself, now flowing into behavior and into form. Whereas motivation is outside in. Motivation says, well, I want a desired outcome, that could be good, so I go for the goal, and then I have an expectation that that's going to make me happier. And if that doesn't happen, or it doesn't happen as quickly as I wanted to, then I get disappointed. And so inevitably, egoic motivation, you're going to be disappointed at some point, inevitably. Whereas inspiration, how can you be disappointed if there's no attachment to outcome? You say, I'm doing this because I feel it's right. There's no outcome on the level of form that's required. I just feel called to do this, and the reward is in itself. The actual process is rewarding in itself because I'm learning lessons. I'm growing as a person, and maybe I'm experiencing joy in the moment. But at the very least, I'm accepting the task. I'm just consciously aware and neutral. There's no negativity, no resistance coming in. And this is my life. This is my spiritual practice. So, all right, I accept it and I do it, and that's sustainable. That'll keep you going through thick and thin because you're not outcome oriented. So inside out versus outside in motivation. And maybe sometimes you vacillate because it's still like, oh, there's still some part of the ego's motivational system there. Oh, I need some reward on the exterior. It's short-term pleasure. Oh, go for a swim or do something. Do something that's going to please the senses and relax you. Or go, no, I'm on purpose here and I must do what I feel called to do. That's then your higher service. I mean, think of Yeshua. It's a good example. This is our teacher. And, he lived a life of service. He dedicated his life to the service of others. And he didn't say, well, I'm tired now of preaching. We're not going to go to the next town. I'm out of here. I'm going to go spend a month's holiday with my family. He didn't do that. He was like, I'm dedicated to my path. I'm committed. And I will take it to the ultimate. His willingness to be crucified was an act of service to all of us, to humanity, to say, okay, I'm gonna do this for everyone, to demonstrate this transcendent thought system of the Holy Spirit, that even in the most extreme situation, you can still not fear and not attack, and you can let this go. I mean, what an act of service to everyone. So yes, I'm dedicated to the healing of the whole, and I'll take it the whole way. If that means I lay down my physical life, then so be it. Act of higher service to everyone. So again, there's the example. He found his flow and his joy in service to others, and that seems to be the way that most people do. sustainable joy comes through not just self-pleasing. It comes through to service to others. So I hope that's kind of helpful to help you. Just remind yourself, if everything is part of that service, the least email you send, the phone call you make, the thing you have the most resistance
really
to,
good.
it's part of the service. Okay, well, I'll just do it. At the very least, just accept that this is part of the service. I might not specifically enjoy this task. You might not like sending emails, or you might not like calling people up and whatever. We all have our little points of resistance, but if you just do it, so okay, well, it's all part of a bigger thing, and it's it's service to everyone. So yeah, I just do that, and I'm not in the mindset of resisting anymore. And then you just do it, and you learn to accept everything at the very base level. Acceptance. Kotali talks about a 3-level system. Acceptance is base level, that I'm not resisting anything, I'm not avoiding it, so I accept it. And the second level is I can actually enjoy it, so sense of joy, enjoyment can flow into it. And finally, there's enthusiasm. So that's a joy on steroids. It's like, I actually have a higher vision, a goal, if you like, of where this is going. I have an idea where this is going, and that's really inspiring. It's like, wow, yeah, that's. So there's a thought of some kind of destination, but really you enjoy the moment, and that's the enthusiasm is just kind of the icing on the cake. It just adds a little bit of oomph to the underlying enjoyment. Oh well, I'm climbing the mountain. I'm enjoying the scenery. It's a lovely walk, great scenery. I'm in nature. It's fresh air. But if I get to the top, that would be nice because there's an amazing view there. So I have that thought, and if the going gets a bit tough, say I'm 3 hours into the walk and I've still got 2 hours to go to get to the top, I might go, okay, but remember, at the top there's this great view, and you're going to sit there and you're just going to be, in this amazing peace in this view, and then that's kind of a level of enthusiasm that keeps you, that can also keep you going. So those are the 3 levels. But at the very base, you want to be in acceptance. Let's see, Lucy's left us. So I guess we'll move on. So let's have a little read of today's quote and a little teaching, my comments, and then we'll go into the lesson and a meditation. I've got to go out in about an hour and a half. So
Okay.
to let you know, but I'm sure we'll be done by then.
Okay. You are heaven.
Oh, hang on. We did this yesterday, so I think I've got my apologies for that. Yeah, I'm like, oh dear. Okay, right.
that quote keeps following me around.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, obviously, it's a good one actually. It's a good reminder. So here's the yes. Let me just bring it up on a big screen.
Okay,
there we go. So this is Gandhi.
If we could change ourselves, the tendencies in the world would also change. As a man changes his own nature, so does the attitude of the world change towards him. We need not wait to see what others do.
That's actually
like no private thoughts.
Yeah, and we must be the change we want to see in the world. That's actually where it comes from. He never actually said that. That was the abbreviated version of this longer quote. We must become the change we want to see in the world. And this is, yes, everything changes when you change your mind. Tendencies in the world would also change. Why? Because it's one mind. Your mind is part of the collective that's changing as you change. So you have an impact just on a thought level, just by changing your mind, changing your attitude, beliefs. You're changing the world, because the world is a projection of mind. Okay, so
today's inspirational quote, which is what Mohandas Gandhi actually said, rather than the more popularized shorter version, which is we must become the change we want to see in the world, reiterates the simple truth that to change anything for the better in the world, we must first change ourselves. If we want a more peaceful world, we must be more peaceful ourselves. If we want a happier world, we need to be happy ourselves. And if we want a more loving world, we must become more loving towards others.
Yeah. So, and all spiritual teaching is just somebody saying you take responsibility. Don't try and effect a change outside of yourself. You become it. Become the peace you want to see in the world. Become the happiness you want to see in the world. Become the love you want to see in the world. And then you're contributing to a better world. Otherwise, forget it. You're not.
There's degrees to it, though, isn't there? Sometimes you forget and you think, oh, so-and-so is not pulling their weight or doing their share or something. And then, someone will just say something and just remind you, oh, okay, I'm holding back. I'm not giving, whatever it is. So it's one of those things where it's good to be reminded of it.
We're always tempted. See, the ego's thought system, the temptation is to think that the exterior world is what's causative. So something's happened, someone's not pulling their weight, someone's done something, said something, and that's now causative of the interior world. Now, my parents' irritation or anger or lack of love is justified because, look, this is what happened. Therefore justified. Outside in, right? My interior domain is dependent on the exterior domain. This is causative, primary cause, and this is now secondary. And so this is the victim way of living your life. The external world is dictating your thoughts and emotions continuously. And any spiritual path simply says turn that around. It's upside down thinking. Actually, you decide what your thoughts and emotions are based on an internal frame of reference. Who you believe you are, your purpose. This is primary. And then this will influence behavior. So it's inside out. You decide in advance. This is who I am. This is how this is how I want to think. This is how I want to feel. And now you take that intention into every situation and you behave according to the intention. So now you're inside out. You're motivated. You're inspired from within rather than motivated from without to act. And they're opposite ways of living your life. You can't reconcile them. The one puts you at the effect of the world. The other one means you're causative in the world. Your intentions are primary. That's what drives your experience in the world. And it's very obvious when you look at it in stark contrast like that. Well, why would you possibly want to be outside in when you could be inside out? Why would you possibly want to do that? Apart from the fact that it's not true, because you can change your mind, and your mind then influences behavior, and you start to see that those outcomes change based on your own intentions. So you can see the falsity of this. But why would you want that? You make yourself a victim of the world.
It's human nature, though, isn't it? To say, well, if they changed, I'd feel better.
Yeah. If something outside of me changed, then I would be happier. And so the change is always outside of me. It's always external. And therefore I'm not responsible. I can't do anything about it. The ego says this is good. No, this is good. They must change. And you're okay as you are, because then it doesn't have to take responsibility and change itself and undo itself. So this is why the ego is fixated on this. But it's a very disempowering thought system, because you're saying I'm a victim of the world. I'm dependent on the external world for my happiness. Well, that's a disaster. So anything happens outside of you, someone can just say something or do something. Oh, well, now I'm unhappy because such and such said something. And if you hold on to that, well, you'll be unhappy for a long time. So I'm unhappy for the rest of my life because someone said something. Take it to its extreme. It doesn't make any sense, does it? Someone once called me stupid, so now I believe I'm stupid for the rest of my life, and I'm condemned to being stupid and unhappy. It's a ridiculous example, because we'll go, well, at some point you're going to kind of get over that. but then something else comes in. Someone else says the same thing, and then you take that to heart, and so you're the victim of the world, and that is a very disempowered place to be. There's no power there. You're at the effect rather than the cause, and all spiritual paths are just about turning that around, saying, no, you're not the victim of the world. You are all powerful because you decide. You have the power of intention. You can choose your values, your thoughts, your emotions, your beliefs. Primarily, you decide. You can align with truth, which is eternal. It's not reliant on anything exterior, which is what we're doing. Going to an eternal truth that creates a belief system and a set of values that we can now live according to, and that then profoundly influences our behavior and the outcomes we experience and all of our perceptions. So inside out, an unshakable truth based on it's not wavering. It doesn't matter what happens in the external in the world. This truth is eternal. It doesn't waver. It never changes. So this is what we're training our minds to do. To be unwavering in the face of all the changes in the exterior, and say, the truth is true, irrespective of what's seemingly happening in my life, what's happening in the world, what's happening now, and this passage of time in human history. This truth is eternal. This truth has always been there, and I will hold to the truth no matter what. No matter what the circumstances are, this thought system will go with me. God goes with me wherever I go, to help me navigate through this this exterior world I seem to be living in. This is the foundation, the rock on which I base my life, and it's the only thing that makes any sense. Well, you're going to base your life on a thought system that's so variable that it can change at any point. It just depends on the way the wind's blowing as to what your mood is. How can you have any stability in a thought system like that? How can you expect that to bring you any kind of lasting happiness or peace? Well, clearly you can't. You must decide up front, this is my thought system, and I will hold to this no matter what. No matter what the temptation is to believe otherwise. So the temptation comes, something happens in the external, or believe in that and allow that to influence your thoughts and emotions. And this is the way we kind of wired up as human beings, to be directed by the externals. But we can change our minds. So that's what we've been trained to do, systematically and progressively. This sounds simple. Oh, well, just it's all inside out. You can conceptually go, no, that makes sense. Okay, got that. Okay, well, just apply that. Apply that in your life consistently, and you'll see how hard it is to do. Because you're constantly being, bombarded by externalities, other people, things, places, events come into your consciousness, and then that seems to warrant some kind of mental, emotional response. And then you got to resist that and say, no, is this in accordance with my belief that I know is true, that's eternally true, or not? Out of accord, let it go. If it's in accordance, well, then that's fine. This is enhancing it. But the frame of reference is internal. It's what's called an internal locus of control. The locus of control becomes internal, your own chosen internal guide, and that is the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit is the remembrance of oneness that now has a thought system fleshed out. Oneness fleshed out has a thought system of integrity, honesty, kindness, love, happiness, service. It's all part of that thought system based on the idea of oneness, isn't it? Based on a simple idea. So you choose that consciously, and you say, I will hold to this no matter what the temptation is to not. Because the ego's only defense then is, oh, well, it's going to try and get you to focus on the externals, isn't it? Focus on what other people are doing, focus on the external world as this defense mechanism to now say, no, actually it is justified that you think my kind of thoughts. You think thoughts that are fearful and attack thoughts and guilt and sin and so on. And this is now justified by what I'm showing you in the external world, which is a projection. So this is its defense mechanism, projection in the external world, to trigger its thought system in your mind and get you to believe in it. And it's always trying to do that. But if you've seen the game, you go, well, this is just projection. And my perception now becomes the point of focus. Right? So perception now becomes the battleground between the ego and the spirit. Well, how am I going to perceive it? You see, because the external world's happening. We're in the domain of perception. So now, how am I going to interpret what I'm seeing? What's the program I'm using to interpret that? So the data comes in. You use a computer analogy. Data comes in from the external. It's like being input into the mechanism, like you input into a computer. So you have a keyboard, you have a video with a camera and a microphone. So there's inputs coming in to the computer. So you have the sensory interface with the world, but your perception is how you interpret data. You see, and that depends on your thinking. So perception isn't a fact. Perception is interpretive. So we are creating our reality by deciding on how we interpret them. People might say, well, you can't, the wall is the wall. You see the wall's like independently there. Well, even if the truth is it's not, it's still a projection of your own mind. But okay, on the level of form, you go, okay, well, the wall is there and it's probably not going to go away if I change my thinking. I can see, feel, touch, and taste the wall. But how I perceive the wall can change in an instant. So this is the focus of the course. It's saying focus on your perception, because that's where the rubber meets the road in this, and that's where the ego and the spirit depart. The ego is going to perceive the same sensory input in one way, and the spirit's going to interpret it in another way, and they're diametrically opposed. Oneness and separation will interpret the same data very differently, and you've probably experienced that in your own life. Exactly the same situation, you might perceive it one way, someone else has exactly the same experience, they perceive it another way. I remember once I was in a movie and it was quite extraordinary. It was before I'd really got into this stuff. It was a long time ago. I was a student with a friend. There's this movie with Demi Moore and Woody Harrelson called what was it called? Anyway, the plots of the movie, and Robert Redford. The plots of the movie was that this couple had fallen on hard times. They needed money to save their house. So they go to Las Vegas, and they can take their last money and they're going to have a go. They're going to try and gamble it and make the money they need. And it all goes well for the first day. And the second day it all goes pear-shaped, and they say they lose their money and they're going to lose their house. And then Robert Redford, who's a billionaire, happens to see Demi Moore, and he takes a shine to her. He's like, oh, I'd quite like to have some of that. And so he makes them an offer. He says, I will pay you $1 million for one night with her. And they agree. They say, well, look, it's one night. What's the harm? So they take the money, and then he changes his mind at the last moment. It's too late. She's flown off in a helicopter. And then he goes through all this, emotional drama and breakup. And so he's in the middle of this, and he's got himself drunk and he's passed out. And then Robert Redford's right-hand man comes into his house, and he sees that he's torn a photograph in two of the two of them. So there's him on the one side and her, and it's torn, but he's then taped it together. So you can see it's been torn, and he looks on that and he kind of does a little smile. So that same situation, I'm sitting in the same movie theater, my friend's next to me. End of the movie, he says, oh, that guy was such a bastard. I said, why do you say that? So no, because he was in the guy's house and he was laughing at him. He was like mocking him. And I said, no, that smile was not a mocking laugh. He was understanding. It was a smile of understanding. He understood the mental and emotional turmoil the guy had gone through, and it was all demonstrated in the picture that had been torn apart and then pasted together. And he had a little smile because he understood. So he wasn't being nasty or mocking. He was actually just a smile of understanding or empathy. So I interpret it as empathetic. My friend interprets it as, oh, the guy's, attacking. And needless to say, I fell out with my friend eventually, because we just had a different way of looking at the world entirely. He was like ego, attack. So two people seeing exactly the same movie, exactly the same scene, there's no difference, and yet one interprets it completely differently from another. That's perception, isn't it? Based on a pre-existing thought system. And this is why our thought system matters so much, because it's gonna be the filter, the program, if you like, the operating system through which all of the sensory input is interpreted and then given a meaning. And that's why perception is really the focus of this course. Course in Miracles is a course in perception training. You're going to train your mind to perceive in a certain way as preparation for the ultimate knowledge of pure formless awareness of perfect love. But you're not going to get to that knowledge and that experience unless you start changing your perception. You've got all these faulty perceptions and the beliefs that underlie them, then this is not going to be very helpful. When you look at the levels of mind diagram, which I sent out today, did you see that in the email? In fact, it's in the email, isn't it? So I can just go to the email. I don't know why I'm going there. So levels of mind diagram: perception, emotion, thought, belief. That kind of lays it out quite nicely, doesn't it? So perception's at the top, but then underlying that, there's all these layers: emotion, thought, belief, and at the very core of it, which is where the miracle takes place, is the desire or prayer of the heart. So in the end, it's my desire to see something a certain way. I desire to see it from a separate self, to keep the separate self intact, or I desire to see it from the perspective of oneness because I'm done with the separate self and I'd like to be one self again. Thank you. Those are the choices. And this is what Yeshua is saying. Look, it's actually very simple. There's two thought systems, and you got to choose at which altar you worship, which foundation will you have for your thought system, and that's going to determine your belief, your thought, your emotion, and your perception of every single situation. So the miracle is when you change it, when you switch it from the one thought system to the other in a specific instance. So you have a perception, and then that triggers an emotion and a thought and a belief that's not pleasant, that's negative, we call it. Now the miracle is I can actually, through awareness, go through the process of becoming aware of this and then letting go ultimately of the desire behind all of this, which is the desire to be separate. And so in that instrument for peace, like we went through yesterday, really at the core of the ego is the desire to be separate self, isn't there? That's what it highlights. You want this to be true because you actually desire to be a separate self that's somehow now perceiving this and is the victim of it. But you can change that, because actually you can desire to be one self, and then you have to let go of the desire of the ego, and then the belief and the thought and the emotion and the perception all change, because those are the foundation stones. They must change. So that's primary. Then that rests on the next layer up, and then thought on the next, then emotion, and then perception. So the miracle just asks us to go to the very core, change our desire or prayer of the heart, and then all of this will change. Belief, thought, emotion, perception must change when you change your desire. Okay, so we crack on with this. So next paragraph.
This is why you're doing the Art of Letting Go club program with all the mind training exercises and lessons it contains, because you want to be happier, more peaceful, and more loving, and live in a happier, more peaceful, and more loving world as a result, even if that's only in your perception of it. As the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics states, there is no reality in the absence of observation, so observation creates reality. That's mind-blowing, isn't it?
And this is a scientific principle. So science and spirituality are merging. Like, well, this is what spiritual teachers have been saying forever. Now science is saying the same thing. Okay, it's an interpretation. So the scientific materialists don't really get quantum mechanics. They'll go, oh, well, that's just an interpretation. But how else do you interpret it? This is what the experiments time and time again are saying, that the experimenter is not independent of the experiment. The outcome is dependent on the perception of the experimenter. That's over and over and over again. They get these results. So how else do you interpret it then? So consciousness, your mind, and your perception become primary causative aspects of reality. There's no longer a separate external world You're some kind of independent observer perceiving it, and it's outside of you, and you don't really affect it. That's the Newtonian model. That's quantum says that's totally false. That's just not how reality works at all. But we have a society that's largely constructed on Newtonian principles. Or, you know, the world is outside of you. You're independent of it. The way you think doesn't really matter because the body's independent of mind. There is no mind. But the extreme of scientific materialism, saying there's no mind. You're a body. Everything can be explained by the body and processes in the body. Even the consciousness is a product of the brain. So when you die, then that's it. Well, you know, this isn't good science because there's so much evidence that you're not. There's people who have out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences. You know, the brain activity after about 30 seconds after death, brain activity ceases. You can't measure anything. The ECG will pick up no brain activity, and yet people having near-death experiences come back and they go, "Wow, I've just had this whole experience," and yet there was no brain activity. So what's that telling you? It's telling you there's something more than the brain. You know, there's a mind independent of brain. There's now the mind has clearly gone somewhere else. It's not in the brain anymore. Maybe it never was in the brain. That's the whole point. We are not local to our bodies. Maybe then you see it calls into question the reality of the whole thing. Well, you know, if there's independent mind that's not tied to the body, then maybe the body's not real. Maybe the body's not true. Maybe that's the illusion. The seeming reality of all of this, the exterior, is actually false. And what's true and primary is mind, and that can't be seen. The interior domains are true, and this is false. And ultimately, that's what the Course is teaching us. You know, this is illusion, the exterior domains. We deal with it while we're here, but it's illusion. It's a projection of a false belief in separation. That's the only reason it seems to exist. And you now use it to perpetuate the false belief of I'm a separate self. So turn that around, go to the true self, the one self, reinterpret the behavior, the external domain from the one self, and then you have the way out of the problem. You're just reinterpreting it all, and you're seeing it correctly. And if you keep doing that, eventually it disappears because it's no longer necessary. You no longer believe in the thought system that projected it out. And that's the enlightened. You know, so that's what at-one-ment is about, and that's what we're doing here. Okay, happy with Copenhagen interpretation?
Yeah.
Most scientists don't get this. So you get this. You get what most scientists don't get. You understand these principles. What advanced scientists, so-called advanced scientists, most of them don't get it. Certainly, our medical doctors don't get this. They don't understand that you're not a body. They think you're a body, and everything's on the material level. So then the treatment regime is based on the body. They don't acknowledge that the mind actually has a profound impact on the body. That's not in their thought system. So you're way ahead of all of them if you understand this. And this is why they don't want people to understand this, because they don't need doctors anymore. Why would you go to a doctor if he doesn't really understand what he's doing? He doesn't understand. He's got no understanding of how this integral model works. You understand more. So why are you consulting him when you have a higher level of understanding? You wouldn't want to, would you? So you then heal yourself. So it basically invalidates their business model. They need people. So, oh, doctor, you're so special and important because you studied medicine and you know what I don't know. But if you go, well, actually, I know more than you know, then why would you go consult the person? You wouldn't. So, of course, they have to keep people in a victim mindset. And, oh, I don't know very much, because their entire career, livelihood, business model rests on it.
Yesterday, I put something on Facebook that felt like it was kind of touching the edge of most people's perception. And some doctor who's some cancer specialist or something put on there that he agreed with me. And I felt really pleased that he'd agreed with me from the point of view, oh, I must be right then. And then I caught myself with, no, it's the other way around, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's good that he'd got that breakthrough idea as well.
Yeah, well, not all doctors are in the dark. People are starting to question and open up. Bruce Lipton, classic example. he was a doctor. He said, I was in the dark for 20 years. I believed in scientific materialism. And then suddenly I just kind of, the lights went on and I just saw through that. And I realized that actually mind is primary to medicine. You can't ignore mind. You can't ignore the person's mind. It's primary in influencing body and behavior. And so the lights went on. He went, okay, well, now, I'm still a doctor. I've still got this training, but I'm going to reinterpret all of, the entire medicine and teach people this, that your beliefs are really important. Your beliefs are primary to your health. They're not somewhere outside of you. It's not like, oh, my beliefs don't matter. They absolutely do matter. They direct how the cells operate. And then he's gone into showing that in the science and going, well, actually, epigenetics says that the genes are, there as a base, but really what activates those genes is thought and emotion, because there's a protein covering over the genes that needs to be unlocked. And that what unlocks those the genes to be copied is thought and emotion. So which part of the gene is going to be copied? Well, that's your thought and emotion that determines that. So, this idea that we genetically predetermine that genes do everything, it's just totally false. It's not true. And yet, many doctors and scientists still believe it. But it's been shown scientifically not to be true, because what unlocks the genes and then allows them to be copied, and which genes are going to be copied, is thought and emotion. And because that thought and emotion affect the biochemicals in the body. So if you've got cortisol, if you're stressed, fearful thoughts and emotion, you've got cortisol and adrenaline get produced, and that then affects the way that those proteins get unlock the genes, and the genes get replicated. That profoundly affects it. What thought and emotion is what chemical is going on in the body, which is directed by thought and emotion. So it's saying, well, your beliefs are your biochemistry is controlled by your belief. Okay, so this is primary again. This is primary. This is secondary. This is causative. This is the effect, and not the cause. It turns it around, and then starts teaching it, and people go, "Oh, wow, that's a whole different way of looking at the same system, interpreting it differently from a different frame of reference, from a different belief system." Which is then empowering, saying you're not the victim of your genes. Hallelujah! Isn't that nice to know? You're not born, if you've got cancer in your family, now I'm going to get cancer because my father and my grandfather got it. No, not necessarily. You decide on whether you want to believe that, and your thoughts and emotions, which you have control of, are primary in determining whether you get cancer or not. So you're in control. Again, you then responsible. Why do you need the medical industry? You don't, because I can change them. They can't help you to change your thoughts and emotions. That's up to you. And now you're in another domain. Now you're in the domain of spiritual growth, and you're going to look elsewhere for help, aren't you? You're not going to go to your doctor. You'll go to a spiritual teacher rather, or a healer, and say, okay, so I need help here to shift my perception. So it's another model, another system that then really makes the other one redundant. Why do you need a model that's based on falsity when you can have the truth and you can heal? So I mean, Bruce Lipton was saying, look, medicine's quite good at mechanics. If you've got a broken arm and you need to fix the bone, fine. Go to a doctor. You need a hip replacement. You need a heart replacement. This kind of stuff. It's quite good at that. Amazing. So go. If you need an operation like that, go have it. But it's very, very bad at the lifestyle diseases, cancer, heart disease, strokes, things that kill so many people. It really doesn't have solution for that. Its solution is, change the chemistry of the body through drugs. We're gonna try and change it here on the exterior with chemicals, which then change the person's experience of it. So we dope them up, and then like, let's say depression. You give them a drug and then they become kind of zombies, but you haven't really dealt with the underlying cause, the thoughts and emotions that are problematic. You just numb it out. You just numb them out. Not really a solution at all. You've just like repressed the pain. It's all buried, and that just you kind of just managing it with medication. The person is maybe less volatile emotionally, but you haven't really resolved anything. So it doesn't deal at all well with any of these lifestyle diseases because they are intentional. This is coming from thoughts and emotions. Well, how's a drug going to help you to change your mind? It's not. You have to do the spiritual work rather. Okay, so welcome back, Iona. If you're still there, I know Iona had to go. So therefore, all you need to do to change the world is to change your perception of it. Which is what Yeshua advises us to focus on in his quote. You want to read the quote?
Projection makes perception. The world you see is what you gave it, nothing more than that. But though that is no more than that, is not less. Therefore, to you it is important. It is the witness to your state of mind, the outside picture of an inward condition. As the man thinketh, so does he perceive. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. Very profound.
Yeah, that's from the text. We'll get this in chapter 21. Projection makes perception. Right? So we project from the belief in separation, and that creates the illusion of an external world, which we then perceive. So it started with the thought of separation hurled out of the mind, now making this whole perceptual world. Oh, there's John. Making this whole perceptual world. And then we give the world. The world just says what you gave it. So we project our thoughts and emotions onto the world. And we go, oh, well, this is what it is, independent reality. But it's not. It's projection of our own mind. How are you, John?
Hi, Jono. Hi, Sally. Hi, Iona.
And so, therefore, to you, it is important because this is a projection of your own mind. You think it's real. The witness to your state of mind, the outside picture of an inward condition. Well, right here, you have the integral model, don't you? Outside picture, exterior of an inward condition, your intentions. But it's a projection of that. So causative is mind. The mind is causative, and so as a man thinketh, so does he perceive. So you think in certain ways, and then you're going to perceive. You have a thought system, now you're going to perceive whatever's happening on the exterior in a certain way, based on your thought system. As you think, so you perceive. So perception is not independent of your thought, it's directly connected to thought. Because perception involves interpretation of reality. So what thought system, what's your default operating program that's now interpreting the reality? Outside picture of an inward condition. As a man thinketh, so does he perceive. Therefore, seek not to change the world, but choose to change your mind about the world. So don't try and do what the ego wants you to do, which is to change the externals and go, oh, well, in order for me to be happy, I need for this and this and this to happen. No, don't do that. Just recognize that I can change my mind about the world. Nothing here has to change. Just my thinking has to change. Then my perception of the world will change. Now I've changed the world. See, so in an instant, we change the world when we change our perception of the world. Because, as quantum mechanics says, there is no reality in the absence of observation. There is no reality in the absence of perception. Observation is perception. So observation or perception creates reality. It's a perceptual world. I have a perceptual problem. If I have a problem, my problem is a perceptual one because perception is what's creating reality. And this is quantum mechanics is telling us this. It's a scientific principle as well as a spiritual one. This is where science and spirituality merge into the same truth. Okay, so happy with that quote?
Yeah.
Moving swiftly on then. John, do you want to read the next one? New thoughts about the world?
New thoughts about the world create new beliefs and new emotions that form new neural pathways in your brain, which then become your new identity. This new identity also profoundly affects your body's biochemistry and inspires or induces you to continue to change your beliefs, thoughts, emotions, perceptions, decisions, and actions in a way that aligns with the new belief. This creates and continually reinforces a new reality for yourself, which is why our beliefs are powerful and need to be chosen with conscious awareness of ultimate truth, rather than a false desire for a separate individual identity.
Okay, does it make sense?
Yeah, I mean, fundamental critical truths, aren't they?
Illustrated quite nicely in this diagram. This is from the Instrument for Peace. So perception at the top, you have a situation, you have a perception of it. Well, you know, it's this way. Perception is interpretive, but underlying perception is emotion. So particularly if it's something that's triggering you, there's an underlying emotion which is not going to be a happy emotion. If it's the ego that's sponsoring the perception. Then you dig into thought. Okay, so what's the thought behind the emotion? What must I be thinking in order to feel this way, in order to perceive this way? And underlying thought lies belief. Okay, what must I believe about myself and the world in order to have this thought, which leads to the emotion, which leads to the perception? So now I drill it down into belief, and underlying that belief is a desire to be separate or to be one. So you highlight the belief. If it's an egoic belief, it's really desire to be a separate self, to maintain a separate identity that's underneath it. By going through the Instrument for Peace process, you know, that series of questions and the worksheet, you get to see this all unpacked, don't you? And then you get to the core of it and you say, well, at the core of it, it's a simple choice. Do I desire to be separate, or do I desire to be one? That's the choice. That's the prayer of the heart. You know, which do I choose here? And if you choose the miracle, then you choose to be one self rather than a separate self. That desire now changes your belief. It must change your thoughts. It must change your emotions, and it will change your perceptions about every situation. So your desire is primary, because remember, desire to be a separate self was what kicked the whole illusion off. You didn't want oneness, you wanted to be something else. It was just a tiny mad idea, a tiny desire that had no substance in truth. And that desire now remains at the core of the whole thing, of all of your misperceptions of the world. So go change the desire, and that's what the miracle does. And then you undo this whole construct of the mind that keeps you in prison, in the illusion. So by working through this, A, B, C, you know, when I think about whatever the situation is, that's my perception of it. I feel this, that's the emotion. Because I think that, there's the thought. These thoughts and feelings prove that I'm right at. That's belief. Well, what's the core of my belief then? My belief in lack, and then that what I want and expect is for that reveals what your desire must be. Oh, I desire to be a separate self. I'm actually desiring to be a victim by continuing to believe in this. And when you see that all exposed, how can you continue to believe in it? Which is then the miracle. Okay, well, let me check. I don't actually want to expect for that to happen. All I want is for peace. I want peace. I want oneness. I want love. Okay, so now that belief, I can let go of that belief. I can let go of the thought. I can let go of the emotion. I can drop the perception because I want something else. So it's actually a really, really simple process. The miracle is not complicated. But it's not something what we've been trained to do. So it requires some mind training to go to this level of desire or prayer and say, okay, well, what do I really want in this situation? What do I want to see? Not, oh, well, this is what's being shown to me and I just accept it. What do I really want to see in this situation? What do I want to perceive? That takes you to fundamental desire then, which is where the transformation happens. Okay, so Sally, if you want to read the next one, this process of changing your mind.
This process of changing your mind at the fundamental level of desire is what Yeshua calls a miracle in the Course in Miracles. And this fundamental change of mind usually leads to miraculous effects on the level of behavior and form, outcomes, because our beliefs create our perceptions or experience of reality in this world. To give you a quantum perspective on how changing your mind positively can miraculously change your body and world, I recommend listening to this talk by American biologist Dr. Bruce Lipton on the biology of belief.
Yeah. So yeah, well, it's quite a long talk, 2.5 hours, but it's fascinating because what you start to see is that this thought system of A Course in Miracles, now, it has scientific validity in terms of the way it affects the body, and the science is starting to see that your thoughts and emotions really do profoundly affect your body and your health, and he just shows you the mechanism of how that actually works. So hence the biology of belief, showing us that our beliefs are primary. Always, belief is primary, causative of our reality, of our body's condition, of our state of mind, of our health, of our well-being in this world. It all comes down to belief. So we need to be vigilant of our beliefs. What am I believing? What am I then, based on my beliefs, what am I believing? What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I perceiving? So this whole cascade comes down to the core belief. And what I like about the Course is it drills it down one level further and says, what do you desire? What do you want to believe? That's really the question. What do you want to believe? Do you want to believe in falsehood? Well, you can continue to do that forever. Your choice. Or do you want to believe in the truth? And that's the level of the miracle. That's the fundamental change of mind that this Course is training us to do. Okay, so any thoughts on the have you watched that video? Any thoughts on the biology of belief? Any questions?
I've listened to a lot of his work. I'm halfway through that one.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's what my work is based on, and yeah, he's a nice chap, isn't he? He presents it well, and
he's very genuine. You can see he really believes it himself, and he's had his own spiritual awakening, and his path was medicine. Well, it just shows you can do it in any way. Medicine and science can take you to the same truth. And then afterwards, YouTube took me to another video where he's sitting on stage with a Swami person, and they're talking at a sort of spiritual gathering. She's talking from the spiritual aspect, and he's talking from the science medical aspect, but they're really saying the same thing, just different perspectives. And so science and spirituality merge in the same truth. They're saying the same thing, and so scientists like him will come to the same conclusion as someone who's followed a spiritual path, because they're just different paths to get to the same truth ultimately.
It was interesting why he had to leave a couple of universities, because others didn't agree with his mindset.
Yeah,
he's out on his own with it, isn't he?
But that's not good science, is it? Someone's challenging the paradigm, and then you go, oh, well, sorry, you're not welcome here. I mean, that's not science. That's not independent inquiry. There should be, someone's actually challenging our, okay, well, that's interesting, because good science should evolve. And if our theory is wrong, then someone needs to point that out and come up with a better explanation of reality. Science is an explanation of reality as we observe it, and good science as well. If the observations don't fit the theory, then the theory needs to change. Except that science has now become a dogma. Newtonian physics is actually a dogmatic belief in an external world. This is not good science. This is dogma. This is belief. As people like Bruce Lipton and Rupert Sheldrake, they say this is a dogma. Science is no longer independent, free-thinking inquiry. This is a dogma. They want to believe this, and they will discount the evidence for anything.
Can you hear Jono, Sally?
No, we've lost him.
Materialist belief is a religion.
We lost you there for a while, Jonathan.
Sorry. As I said, science has become a religion because it's a dogmatic belief system in what's not true, and they don't want that belief questioned. Evidence is presented to say, well, this isn't actually true, and they dismiss it. They just go, no, well, that's religion, isn't it? That's what the church did hundreds of years ago. They just said, no, it doesn't fit our belief system, so no, and we'll burn you at the stake if you don't agree with us. That's not good science. Scientific revolution came about because we're like, well, no, we actually want independent, free thinking. We want to be free to evaluate ideas, experiment, test, and come up with new hypotheses, new theories based on evidence. Well, with their own method, the scientific method, they're denying, because there is evidence, substantial evidence to support this new interpretation, and they don't accept it. That's not, now you're in religion. Don't say you're a scientist anymore. You're a religious fanatic in your own way. So tell you, a doctor or scientist or someone who's wedded to it, you say you're a religious fanatic. You're the same as the people as these religious fanatics were today or centuries ago, because it's a fixed belief and you're not open to questioning that belief. That's the definition of religion. Religare means to bind the mind. So you change your mind to a set of beliefs, and those beliefs are now no longer open to question. That's the definition of a religion versus science. Okay, so any thoughts, questions, comments on that? Shall we move into the lesson?
Yep, good for me.
Okay, so let's have a look at today's lesson. Have a quick chat about that. So, John, if you want to read the key idea one more time, last time.
Yep, my mind holds only what I think with God. Pure formless awareness of perfect love.
Okay, so any further thoughts on that?
No, I think I've seen that one often enough now.
Okay, it's a good one though, because if your mind
it's great. If
it only holds that, then there's a vigilance there. He's asking you to be vigilant for God only and His kingdom. So only thoughts that come from this deeper awareness should be allowed into your mind. So this is a statement to help you to be vigilant, which is why it's in the settings. You think this, and then you set the scene, and then these other thoughts, true thoughts, come in. Okay, so next one, Sally.
I will accept at-one-ment for myself.
Okay.
Goes back to the private thoughts conversation earlier, doesn't it? I feel like it's in my head. I understand the concept of it. Sometimes I live it, I suppose. I understand that we're all one, but I can't say it's very embedded in me yet.
Yeah, well, this is the process of awakening. The process is the more and more I practice, the more and more I think about these ideas, the more I become one with my true self. I merge with the higher self, the Christ. This becomes my identity. And in that identity, I see that I am the same as everyone else. They have the same identity. That's the at-one-ment process. But that fundamentally contradicts your ego's belief in a separate self. You can't be one self and a separate self. So the shift from the one thought system to the other is the awakening process. Is at-one-ment. That's another word for awakening. And that's the journey. It's the hero's journey. That's welcome to the rest of your life, to really deeply entrench this, so you really get it. Well, if it's taken you your entire life, and probably many lifetimes, to establish your thought system of separation, then it's going to take some time to undo it. That's what we're doing here. So every time you show up, every time you choose to practice a lesson, you do a meditation, you do a breath break, any of it, You're saying, I accept At-One-Ment for myself now, in this moment. Because actually, you could change it. Maybe in our next iteration of this course, Art of Letting Go program, I'll change that. I accept, not I will accept, I accept At-One-Ment for myself. It's
Yeah, yeah.
I accept it now. I'm accepting it in the now moment, because that's the only time I can accept it. I
Yeah,
will accept sort of implies some kind of future acceptance.
it does. I felt that when we actually did that lesson, actually.
Yeah. So I accept At-One-Ment for myself. And that's a present statement of, I accept that I am one self. I accept At-One-Ment. What does that mean? I am one self. I am one with my source. Therefore, I must be one with everyone else because they have the same source. It's logical, isn't it? I accept that for myself. Then I've done the fundamental change at the core here. The desire or prayer, I accept At-One-Ment for myself. I want to be one self. I don't want to be a separate self anymore. That's what that statement is saying. So it starts with conscious intention, and that over and over, repeated over and over, starts to become your deepest desire. That starts to become the default thought system, the operating program within which all the other stuff then happens. Belief, thought, emotion, perception come from that desire to be one self, the desire for At-One-Ment. But he repeats it. He's repeating these lessons over and over every day in a different form, because he knows how deeply our mind is entrenched in separation. So it's going to need a lot of undoing, questioning the belief, replacing it with other beliefs over and over and over again, repetition. So eventually we do start to believe it. We desire it, we believe it. It becomes our new thought system, our new reality. When we've fully adopted it, there's no question anymore. Then we're in knowledge. Then it's a done deal, and the ego's been undone, and we finally just eventually lay the body aside, and the whole dream of separation is done.
I found since doing this program with you, it's very much more obvious how I haven't got these concepts fully embedded. Like, intellectually you get it. I feel that the At-One-Ment is in my heart. I feel like I live it. But I know that there's much more to it. I know that there's another level when I fully embody it. And both those first two ones are not fully embodied. It's interesting just to know that, isn't it? I can feel it here, but I can't feel it further down in me. Yeah. It's interesting for me.
Yeah, so then what you're seeing then is a bit of resistance. There's still some blocks to the awareness of this. But you plug away, just carry on doing it every day, and in a year's time you come back and you cycle back to the lesson and you do it again, and you just keep practicing to go deeper and deeper. So what else are you going to do with your life? That's what you're here to do. And patience, just be patient. The spiritual awakening could come tomorrow. You could come next. You just don't know. You practice, and you just never know when you're going to have a sudden opening and major insight, and that then just advances you. So it's a bit like cracking a big stone. If you want to crack a big boulder, and you've just got a hammer and a chisel, you just hammer away at it, bang, 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 and nothing seems to happen for the first blow, or the 10th, or the 100th, or maybe on the 1000th blow, because you just hammered away. It's like, oh, the stone actually cracks. Now you can get in there and you can start cracking the whole thing open. So you just, every day you practice persistently, patiently, crack, and you just never know when there's going to be a major crack in the ego's thought system, and you go, oh wow, actually I just went into an experience of it. Because that's then the mystics are the ones who experience it. It's not just a thought. It's like, no, I actually had a deep experience of that, and an awakening, which then tells me that this is true. And you just never know when those experiences will happen. You're not in charge of that. But you can train your mind. You can systematically and progressively go, yes, I'll show up and I'll do the mind training, and then you're opening the way for the experience to come. Sorry, you've been saying?
A few days ago, I had my mind holds only what I think with love, drop in a bit further. So it went from my head, I felt it go into my heart.
Yeah.
That was interesting. So yeah, like you say, it just happens randomly, doesn't it, really?
You never know when suddenly some kind of awakening experience is going to happen. You go, oh, I see, because I've had the experience. You listen to Bruce Lipton and the Swami, and they both had profound spiritual experiences to awaken them to the truth, which then put them on a path. Now they're teaching others, but they had to have the experience. It wasn't just intellectual, theoretical. It was like an actual felt experience deeply, and in that instant, you change. Bruce Lipton was like, well, I was a scientific materialist one moment, and then a couple of minutes later, because I've had this experience, I'm now a mystic, because I've had a deep, heart-expanding experience, and that happens in a couple of minutes, and he's never the same. So those moments of insight are, life-changing, because it changes your paradigm. You see everything differently from that moment onwards. So you just never know when an experience like that is around the corner. So you keep practicing. It could be in the next meditation, could be in 5 minutes time. You just don't know. So keep practicing consciously in a disciplined, systematic, methodical way, and you're opening then the way for the Holy Spirit to bring these experiences in, as and when they designed to. You're not in charge of that, so fine. You just practice, and it will happen when it's meant to happen. Okay, so then just the last one, and we'll go into meditation. Only salvation or awakening can be said to cure.
Do you want to do it, John, or shall I?
Yeah, I'll do it. Only salvation, awakening can be said to cure.
Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I like the use of the translation here. Actually, the awakening helps qualify just what salvation is. And I find the word cure just slightly curious. Curious. Yeah.
Yeah. To heal maybe would have been a better one. Maybe we could to cure, heal. I think why is using that is because cure is used in magic, in the medical, and say, well, this is the cure.
Yeah.
It's using it to highlight, okay, well, only salvation or awakening can be said to cure. This is
okay.
Cure, because he's using the same terminology as used in the magic medical.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In that case, I'm very happy with it. Because it is a magical normally used in that environment.
Yeah, but he's asking us to reinterpret the word and say, okay, but actually only this awakening, only internal, inside out healing is going to work here.
Yeah.
Nothing else is going to work. So only awakening to who you really are, interior, is going to cure the exterior problems that you seemingly have.
Yeah.
And the cure is a reference to particularly the body conditions, the whole medical system that's got all these cures, magic cures for the imagined illnesses of the ego. Saying, well, that's not really going to work. Only salvation or awakening can be said to cure. This is where the cure lies, in your own mind. Okay, happy with that? Any
Yep, no, I like that. Yeah.
thoughts, questions, comments? Sally, you okay?
Yeah, I like that one. It's easy one.
Yeah. Okay. So shall we do a meditation for 20 minutes?
Yeah.
All right. So just putting yourselves on mute. Make yourself comfortable. So just sitting comfortably with your feet shoulder width apart, back straight. Cup your hands in your lap. Close your eyes and start off by taking a nice deep breath in through the nose. So breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises, and subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Clenching the sphincter muscle, lock the energy in. Pause at the top of the inhale. Another breath, feel this warm wave of energy rising up. Spine into your heart center. Put one hand on your heart, and that helps you to just connect in with your heart space. Bring your full attention into the present moment. Breathing in, drawing the energy up. Spine into the crown of your head. Pause. So just observe any thoughts, any emotions, any related sensations going on in the mind, in your seeming physical experience. Notice particularly anything that feels at all unpleasant, limiting, contracted, constricted in any way, shape or form. Breathe into that. So the breath creates some space, some so-called light, some awareness, spacious light awareness. Just opens you up to the truth. So bring that truth in consciously with today's overriding idea that my mind holds only what I think with God. My mind holds only what I think with pure formless awareness of perfect love. So only this pure formless awareness, which is perfect love. So you're aware of perfect love, awareness aware of itself. That's the foundation of all of your thoughts. Anything that's out of accord with that, anything that doesn't feel happy, peaceful, loving, joyful, is clearly not in accord. Your mind is holding something else other than what you think with God. So the injunction, my mind holds only what I think with God. Exhale and release it. Just let it go. The breeze of your breath into the nothingness that it really is. Blowing it all out, letting it all go, dropping it all. And find a sense of rest. Bottom of the exhale, just sinking inwards to deeper presence. In this presence, you breathe in again. So I will accept, I do accept right now at-one-ment for myself. I accept at-one-ment for myself. And so you breathe in, just absorbing the at-one-ment. This is the desire to be oneself rather than a separate self. Desire to be one with your source, one with everything the source extended. So that's all your brothers, your companions, your all life on this planet. This is what it means. I accept at-one-ment for myself. I accept that I am one with all of it. There is no separate self. I am one self. Breathe in on that, feel the truth of that, connect with it experientially. You feel a little flutter in your heart, feel an openness in your mind. Maybe you smile. So you breathe in the energy of at-one-ment, deeply connect with it, accept it into a deeper part of your mind. It's all about removing the blocks to your awareness of the acceptance of this oneness. Again, if there are any negative thoughts that seem to crop up, any belief in magic really, or my problems are going to be solved by something external to me, Maybe you have a physical condition, maybe it's just a problem in your life, you're looking to some kind of external for a solution. Say to yourself, only this at one moment, which is salvation, which is awakening, can be said to cure. Only salvation, one-ment or awakening can be said to cure. So all my problems will be solved when I awaken to who I really am. That's what you're saying. So exhale. As you exhale, just blowing it all away, blowing every negative thought and emotion, every sensation that is not coming from pure formless awareness of perfect love. There's a belief in magic and some kind of external causation and external solution to your problems. Let that all go by reminding yourself only salvation or awakening can be said to cure. Blow it all out, just rest in the peace and the stillness of this for a few minutes. There's really nowhere else to go, there's nothing else to do, nothing else to think about or experience. Just please relax, be still. Sink into deeper awareness, truth. Your mind holds only what you think. God, with this pure formless awareness of perfect love that's arising in your mind right now. So there's nowhere else to go. There's nothing else to do. There's nothing else to think about. Just breathe, relax, be still. And surrender to the pure formless awareness of perfect love that you truly are for the next few minutes of deep, blissful silence. Hey Lucy, we're just in a meditation, so it's in the silent part of the med, so just sink into it. Any thoughts, any emotions, any sensations arise that are not coming from pure formless awareness, perfect love, feel at all uncomfortable, difficult, negative, limiting, contracted, constricting in any way, shape or form, just let them go. Observe them. Isn't they just like cloud patterns? And you can let them go. You don't have to believe in the cloud patterns. So just blow them all away with the breeze of your breath to the nothingness they really are. And rest in the blue sky of your true awareness, the pure formless awareness, the blue sky, clear, calm, open, way above the clouds, and the light of your source, the light of perfect love shining through. It's a pure formless awareness of perfect love shining in your mind. And just rest in this state of blissful being for a couple of minutes of deep silence. So just gently coming back, this deep blissful state into an awareness of the body and the breath and the senses and the world. And on the count of 3, going to open your eyes. So 1, just breathing in, noticing how the stomach rises and the chest rises and the subtle flow of air in through the nostrils. Just pausing at the top of the inhale, scan your mind again, notice any thoughts, any emotions, any sensations going on. Particularly anything that feels negative, limiting, contracted, constricting in any way. Remind yourself of the truth that my mind holds only what I think with pure formless awareness, perfect love right now, and so you just let it go, blow it away. There's no validity to that thought, just an insubstantial cloud being blown away by the breeze of your inspired breath, the holy breath it's called. Notice how the air flows out, chest and the stomach suck back in, energy you raised up into the crown subsides back down into the lower stomach and the groin. Feel the weight of your body pressing down into the chair, feet touching the ground. Notice what you're feeling and touching. Your hands, maybe there's a subtle taste in your mouth, smell in your nose. And notice what you're hearing in the surrounding environment. Just noticing all these things from this very still, calm, and surrendered state of mind. Just pure formless awareness coming into perception. So no need to judge, name, label, no need for any adverse thoughts or emotional reactions, just pure formless awareness flowing through your mind, reinterpreting your entire life, every sense perception, every experience is now being interpreted by what we call the Holy Spirit, this remembrance of perfect oneness. This is what spiritual awakening means. This is mind training that Yeshua is training us to do, to reinterpret, perceive everything differently from the perspective of oneness rather than the belief in separation. So notice what you're hearing, touching, feeling, tasting, all from this state of pure formless awareness. And you're going to take this awareness with you into the rest of your afternoon and evening to help you stay here. Just remind yourself frequently of today's lesson. Yeshua recommends every hour. It only needs to take a few seconds. You can just drop in and remind yourself of the three key ideas. My mind holds only what I think with God or pure formless awareness with perfect love. I accept at-one-ment for myself right now, and only salvation or awakening can be said to cure. It needs to take 30 seconds to do that. I've sent you instructions to do it in under a minute, or a longer breath break recording. If you've got a bit more time, listen to that. Just to keep you topped up, to keep you in the presence of this field of oneness. Tapping into allowing it to direct your thoughts, your words, your actions, and your entire experience of life. So it is said and so it is done. So now on the count of 3, open your eyes. Just take a minute to look around, to reorient yourself back into this world. Observe the various objects in the room around you. Let your eyes rest for a few seconds on anything. It could be a wall, a chair, a table, a person. And you notice that this deep peace, this deeper awareness, pure formless awareness is there, underlying your perception. Then move on to something else, another object. You don't have to name it. Just notice that that same awareness is there, underlying the perception. And again, for something else, notice the awareness is there. Do that for half a dozen objects in your own time. And notice that awareness is always there. And so you start to recognize the truth that that awareness is foundational. This is your true awareness. This is without the awareness without which you would have no life, no existence. This becomes the fundamental default awareness, the new operating system that Yeshua is trying to install in your mind to reinterpret all of your experiences from this one awareness. So I hope you've had an experience of that awareness, a deep experience in the last 20 minutes, and the whole session has helped you to create more of that awareness. And we will have another dive into this in a few hours this evening at 8:30. join us 8:30 p.m. UK time. It's 9:30 South African time. Join us if you can for a dive into the text, and we'll have another meditation as well on the lesson. So thanks everyone, and I hopefully see you later. You're gonna